6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Cahirlach. And thank you, Minister, for coming into the Shannon in the Dáil today. The Labour Party will be voting for this bill because we believe that the eviction ban should be extended, but we don't believe that this bill has gone far enough and have tabled an amendment extending the eviction ban to March at the very earliest, allowing the ban to be enforced when any limit is put on movement, and allowing a ban when people are only allowed to move within their county. And I know the Minister serves the constituency, but some will say county, of Fingal. And particularly if you were to lose your house and be evicted in the area of Fingal, it mightn't be just Fingal that you're looking in. You might be looking to Louth and Meath for available properties. So I think that it is important, if we even go back down to level 3 and we're limited within counties, that this is allowable. This virus is not going to magically go away within 7 weeks, and in all likelihood we will be back here again after Christmas. Labour and other parties tabled opposition amendments in July which would have dealt with these issues and allowed the Minister to be able to extend the eviction ban on his own judgment. And it would have avoided unnecessary stress for renters about losing their home in the middle of a pandemic. There is every chance that somebody who is evicted since August has not yet found alternative accommodation. The degree of uncertainty is not fair to renters who, as well as living through a pandemic, are also living in a country that has some of the worst protections for renters, and the threat of being evicted on what are loose grounds with an under-resourced RTB. And I'm glad to say that the Minister, through the budget, has addressed some of that under-resourcing of the RTB to be able to deal with some complaints, and I expect next year that to improve. When this 7-week period is up, evictions will happen. They have already happened since August. They've begun to happen after the last protections were abolished by the government, and I'm going to give the House a flavour of some of those that I have dealt with. Case 1, a mother on homeless HAP, 2-bed, son in a wheelchair. Family had previously been in emergency accommodation, but been given until the end of October, and they're nearing the end of the notice. They have found a new place, but it is much more expensive. Case 2, a house of 12 units, served with notice before the last eviction ban by the family of the deceased landlord. They are basically ignoring the terms over the course of the suspension notice since the last eviction ban, gone to RTB, but a person in there is concerned she's going to be homeless before the RTB case is heard. Case 3, a family of 9 years in the house, 11 years in the council waiting list. Landlord says that he's now planning to sell the house in the new year. I shouldn't be still fighting to get a permanent home for myself and my kids after this long. When they transferred to HAP from rent allowance, they went backwards on the list. Case 4, somebody on HAP. Landlord refusing to extend the tenancy. Single mother and daughter, constant visiting by landlord. No place to go and feel like they're being harassed out, living in very poor conditions. Case 5. Working family, both parents are from abroad with one small child, now living in new accommodation after being asked to leave by the landlord. Given way less than the legal notice, told it was because the property was being sold, left unaware of the rights that they had. Between August the 2nd and September the 24th, the RTB were notified of 753 warning letters issued by landlords. Threshold have reported in September that 128 tenants received an invalid notice of termination from their landlord, making that about 56% of notices that went to Threshold is invalid, which is high, they tell me, by normal standards. No fault evictions returned in the middle of a pandemic. Evictions for what are a very wide circle of family members returned in the middle of a pandemic. Evictions for potential sale at a future point returned in the middle of a pandemic, and evictions for substantial renovations returned in the middle of a pandemic. This bill links protections for renters with movements being restricted to a 5-kilometre radius because the Minister, and I understand in the legal advice, has repeatedly emphasised that he considers any moratorium on evictions to be vulnerable to constitutional challenge, which I might say hasn't really been tested in the recent past. He said that such measures are only constitutionally permissible when there is restrictions on movement. There is much discussion about taking personal responsibility for dealing with the spread of the virus. We have limits on movements, we have limits on social interaction, we have limits on seeing our families, we have limits on whether we can protest. So much of what we have taken for granted have been constricted and legislated with penalties against, and we will be doing that in this House later on this afternoon. And that is fine, because we are all in this to try and fight a global pandemic. But what I don't understand is how the rights of private property in the middle of this pandemic seem to be so sacrosanct when it comes to ending an eviction ban. We are all playing our part and putting our lives on hold to fight this virus. Landlords and property owners must also do this. The government are leaving open a situation where families will be evicted from their homes a few weeks before Christmas in the middle of the pandemic. We know that the evictions are coming from the private rented sector are a main contributor to family homelessness. The Taoiseach has emphasised that when Level 5 restrictions lapse, it is the intention of the government to move the whole country to Level 3. Movement will be restricted. For cocooners, movement will be restricted. For people who are living with underlying conditions, movement is restricted. They may be forced out of our homes, and our amendment seeks to address this. The priority of the Labour Party and the opposition in the Seanad is to keep people safe, keep people in their homes, and that's why we are tabling the amendments that we're tabling today.
Thank you, Senator.